Dr. Judea Pearl is the Chancellor's Professor of Computer Science and Statistics at the University of California, Los Angeles, and Director of the UCLA Cognitive Systems Laboratory. He is known internationally for his contributions to artificial intelligence, human reasoning, and philosophy of science. Dr. Pearl is the father of slain Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl and president of the Daniel Pearl Foundation, which he co-founded with his family in 2002. He lectures and writes frequently on Jewish identity, the Arab-Israeli conflict, the history of Zionism, and Israel on campus. Dr. Pearl is the author of The Book of Why, The New Science of Cause and Effect, I Am Jewish, Personal Reflections Inspired by the Last Words of Daniel Pearl, and his latest book, Coexistence and Other Fighting Words, in which he tells the story of Israel, laying out essential arguments for why it matters. Joining Judea today is Moment Editor-in-Chief Nadine Epstein. Please welcome Judea Pearl and Nadine Epstein.
Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Oh, you have a beautiful voice.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2,
1, 2,
3.
3.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2,
1,
3.
2, 3. Shu Adonai et Shivat Zion היינו ככל מין. אז ימלא צחוק פינו ולשוננו רינה. Now we can start. ולשוננו רינה.
Well, I'm always delighted to interview you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, we've interviewed you so many times in print and on Moment Live and on so many topics. And I thought we would start with AI, because we interviewed you in 2023 for our AI issue, which is behind me, which is Meet the New Golem, same as the old Golem with the question mark. And I wanted to, let's start with that. I know you were very concerned about AI at that time when we interviewed you. And I'm wondering, I mean, so much has happened in the last 2 years in the world of AI. From where you stand today, what is AI and what is its future prospects? Are you still as worried as you were before?
Yeah, in the same sense that I worried before, I still worry now, perhaps even more, because many new players got into the game, and we can see that even in the state of imperfection as it is now, it still can do lots of harm in terms of privacy violation, in terms of being used improperly in the hands of I say, both military leaders and politicians. So it is still constitutes a threat to many of our values. However, it doesn't deter me from continuing to work and develop it, hopefully for different reasons and to satisfy our natural curiosity, which is how we as human beings function, who are we, what makes us believe in what we believe and aspire to what we aspire. So in order to understand ourselves better, we must continue the research in AI.
Is there something that you find very exciting about AI specifically?
Yeah, it's exciting to utilize and explore its potential. I believe its potentials are unlimited. Unlimited in the sense that the old aspiration to create a silicon-based intelligent being that will be helpful to us in first in a simple capacity as apprentice or smart secretary or a smart household assistant, and later on as a consultant and friend. Yeah, that inspiration has not died, and it's still burning in me.
So are you using AI in any of your work today?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I'm using ChatGPT in everyday um, activity. If I sent you a message last week, it was authored partially by AI.
Oh, now I understand.
In a simple
Okay.
mode, I just ask him to correct the punctuations and make sure that yeah, spelling is correct. And in more advanced mode, I ask him to generate alternative expressions.
So you're using AI for language purposes. Are you using it for computational purposes?
In my research, yes, that's a different issue. In my research, which is mainly theoretical, I'm exploring the limits of AI. What machine can do under what condition, given what input, what assumptions, and so forth. Yeah. Actually, I'm exploring now the idea of manipulating narratives. And narrative is what drives our understanding of things, not the data, but the narrative behind the data. Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, is there something that is there a limit that you've found, or is there something that
Of course.
some understanding that you've come to about narratives?
Yeah, we have essentially a ladder of narratives, namely, it happened to be a hierarchy. Every rung in that ladder constitute a set of queries that the computer can answer given certain assumptions. And you cannot go from one ladder to another, from one rung to another, unless you have assumptions of greater strength. Okay. And this constitute an understanding of what we can understand under what kind of assumption. And of course, we cannot understand things without extra data assumptions. And this is what we call narrative.
Give me an example.
Well, I give you a very hot example, if you want.
Okay. A hot example is what I want.
Yeah, hot example is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Okay. From one narrative, we have here um, white settler endeavor called Zionism, okay, which have taken a piece of land out of the indigenous people, quote unquote, um, and has been engaged in a brutal occupation. That's the Palestinian narrative. On the other side, we have another narrative based on the same data, by the way, okay, as consistent that we have here a homecoming endeavor, okay, that was interrupted and violently opposed by um, people who are resistant the from the data alone. You have to come up with some certain assumptions behind it. And the assumptions are many times unverifiable. It's something that you start your understanding with, and based on the combination of the narrative and the data, you come out with answers to query. Like, for instance, does peace stand any chance in the next future, in the coming future, and things of that sort. Yeah. So
So
this,
have you asked ChatGPT or other AI
no, I
vehicles?
can't do that, you see. Now, here's the point. Because the AI, the ChatGPT, does not have my narrative. You have to
Mhm.
insert externally that narrative in order for you to get the answer that be coherent with both the narrative and the data. No, the ChatGPT today has no ability to incorporate your narrative. What it does instead, it looks at texts written by authors, human being authors, which you can find on the internet. Okay, there are probably millions of such authors. This is anybody who ever used internet, and in some mysterious way, the ChatGPT reflect a sum total. We don't know how it formed this sum, some mysterious sum of all those opinions expressed by those authors, and comes up with the next word to spell out the best fitting word. And that's what we see in ChatGPT. Of course, it has a beautiful aspect that it incorporates everything that those millions of authors know. And it's a lot of knowledge. On the other hand, they know many things which are false. Yeah. And so here we have a problem.
But based on the knowledge that ChatGPT and AI in general, large language models have at this point, have you asked, have you inquired about a formula for peace in the Middle East?
No, I haven't tried because I can uh, I can predict the answer.
Okay, what, please
Well,
predict.
the answer is going to be very careful. Answer is going to be, from one point of view, you can say that there's no chance for peace because the Arabs will never agree to the existence of Israel. On the other hand, you can see some people see sparks of willingness here or there. They're just going to give you a very careful, politically correct answer.
Hmm.
And I think it was programmed to be politically correct.
Okay. Um, well, let's just jump back to AI for 1 second.
Yeah.
So you're a computer scientist, you're a philosopher, you've been working in AI for years now. What were your contributions to AI and why are they important?
My personal contribution?
Yes, your personal
Yeah,
contribution.
you can summarize them in two aspects. First, allowing computer to handle uncertainty. We live in a world full of uncertainty when we cross a street and when we choose a doctor and when we decide to be or not to be on a Zoom session with Moment magazine. These are all uncertain. You can't predict the future. You can't predict the results of your actions. So how do you equip computer, which is basically composed of yes, no gates, logical gates, to handle uncertainty, which is the gray area in life? And that was the work that I think I've been dealing with in the 1970s, 1980s. Yeah. And I think I feel very accomplished that we managed to handle that very nicely with algorithms that are manageable. And I think it was accepted by most computer scientists based on probability theory. But the trick was to be able to do it efficiently in what we call linear time or polynomial time as opposed to exponential time. Namely, if you go by the textbook, you need to have exponentially large memory to store probabilities and exponentially large time to get an answer to the questions that you ask. Uh, for instance, if you ask, the guy just returned from Africa, what's the chance he has malaria? Okay? And to do it properly by a textbook probability will take a lot of time, even for simple answer like that, because you have many aspects to deal with. What does it mean to be in Africa? Okay, so we managed to do it with manageable computational resources. And that was up to 1980, at which place I discovered that behind all this work lies a new element. It's called cause and effect, a new relationship, which not only computer science, but also science in general has not paid attention to. Because all our equations are imprisoned by the connective of equality sign. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
Newton law, if you write Newton law, F is equal to ma, like the acceleration is linear with the force that you apply to it, then it's also true that the force is equal to m times a. So if you know there's no directionality there. If you know the force, you can tell the acceleration. If you know the acceleration, you know the force, right? Or let him put it in more visible terms. If you know the atmospheric pressure, then you know how much the barometer will move. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but the other way around too. If you know how much the barometer moves, you know what the atmospheric pressure, and you can predict the weather tomorrow. Okay? However, if you manipulate the barometer, you wouldn't change the weather tomorrow. You and I understand it, but the equality sign that science have been wedded to is symmetric.
Mm-hmm.
So science in general has neglected the directionality of cause and effect. And I had to build a new algebra to handle this directionality. And this is the second accomplishment that I'm very proud of. That by 1980, I published a book called Causality. And there I worked out an algebra for cause and effect. So I call it the new science of cause and effect, which is a secondary title for the book of why.
So, how does this rethinking of causality and impact your views on the conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Arabs, Israel's and Palestinians?
Indirectly, but very strongly.
Mm.
Um, how, if we in AI need to teach a brainless computer everything that we know about the world. So we have to be very explicit. We have to distinguish assumptions from definitions, definitions from conclusions, conclusions from derivations from assumptions and so forth. So we have to be very explicit on terms of how we assume things and how we and what constitute an assumption and what constitute conclusion from data. Being forced to be explicit in everything that we talked about forces us to be careful. And this care and this distinction that I talked about, okay, guides my thinking also when it comes to social issues, such as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So, in that remote sense, it affected my writing and um, and my logic. So, I believe that I'm lucky to be imprisoned by a logic that makes sense. And in many cases, I find that the thing which is violated most and first is the cause and effect relationship. For instance, whether the occupation is the result of Israeli um, brutality, or is it a necessary component which is a consequence of Arab rejectionism?
Mhm.
It's a cause-effect inversion that we have to be very careful about. Yeah? And in my philosophy, in my analysis, the occupation is a necessary evil and not as a sign for Israel expansionism. So here's an example of how cause and effect inversion can affect all the conclusions that we may come up with. Okay, that's why I'm so happy to talk about the occupation, because
Well,
people don't realize cause and effect relationship, what led to the occupation. Plus, they don't appreciate how necessary Israel's presence is in the
Mhm.
West Bank, okay, given the intentionality of the Arab population there, okay, and their aspirations. Okay.
Well,
That's
let's
something.
step back a second. Let's step back a second.
Yeah,
Because you were born in Israel and Mandate Palestine,
yeah,
and your family had escaped the Holocaust in Europe. That's a lot of your thinking seems to be shaped by your Israeli upbringing. I mean,
yeah.
in what way do you think being born and being an Israeli, growing up as an Israeli, has shaped your thinking, your scientific interests?
Well, that's a different issue. Uh, People think that because I was born in Israel, and Israel is full of Holocaust survivors, and they have a trauma of extermination, then Israelis still maintain that legacy and that fear, unreasonable fear that the Arabs are going to extinguish them, despite the fact that Arabs are angelical peace lovers. Okay, that is the common aspiration. The other way around. I was born with the assumption that the anti-Semitism is over, gone. It only exists in the history books, not in reality. I was shielded from everything that was going on in Europe. The first time that I heard about the Holocaust, it was in 1942 when I got into the kitchen. I saw my mother crying, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Yeah, there's a war going in Europe, and I know I have a family there." And I said, "So what? War comes and war goes. That's my history book says. It's full of wars. They come and go." He said, "No, this is a different kind of a war." The first time I heard about the Holocaust, I was then, 6 years old, yeah. Yeah. And they try to shield me in any possible way from, from any knowledge, except from the books I read in the library, and knowledge about the history of persecutions of the Jewish people and the current state of anti-Semitism and what the Nazism has brought about in Europe. So I grew up with as a free person, freer than any other Jews in the diaspora, and freer than many of the non-Jews. Okay, because I was pumped, pumped into the idea that I ought to be free.
Mhm.
So that's So I didn't grow up with a fear of extermination. No, on the contrary, I've grew up with the idea that we have now a formed free nation and the new era, a new dawn is about to come. And I am the epitome of the new generation of Jews.
Mhm. So
So,
here you are, you're a computer scientist, you're a philosopher, you've been living in the United States for most of your adult life.
yeah,
When did you start advocating for Israel and why?
interesting. I haven't met anti-Semitic incidents in my in America, except for two. One time I took a taxi from New York to New Jersey, and the taxi driver was a Hungarian immigrant who started ranting about Jews being communist and so forth. And I told him to stop and paid him. And I came home with glee. I told Ruth, they exist. And they must really exist. I was happy to find one. And the other time I was in a conference and some colleagues made the remark about people in the Middle East talking like that. And I stopped him and I had, I had him stand up and I said, everybody looked at him. I came from a tribe that knows how to handle those people. Anyhow, these are the two incidents of anti-Semitism that I met him. No. So I started advocating for Israel. That was in the second Intifada. That was
Mhm.
about 2000. We had a group of Israeli, most of them left-leaning, non-Zionist, questioning the idea of Zionism. And then the second Intifada, we had a conversations on email, and the second Intifada broke up, and I couldn't stand the deceit that coming up from the spokesman for the Intifada. One day you hear about we are going to break all the rules now. A student is not going to listen to his professor. A child is not going to listen to his father. We are going to break all the rules and we are going to do that and that to Israel. That was on one hand. On the other hand, they came and said, my daughter has not arrived in time to school. She was going to go. And how can you explain that Israel prevent her from arriving to school on time? So this duplicity and not the yeah deceit
Mhm.
really hit me strongly, and I started advocating for Israel. And then I looked carefully, and then I asked myself, really, what does it mean to be a Zionist? What does it mean not to have Israel? And I started seriously looking at the sources, reading the sources, and advocating for Israel. Yeah.
And then I think, well, how does your book, you have a new book coming out. It's called Coexistence and Other Fighting Words, Selected Writings of Judea Pearl. Um, how does that contribute? And why did you write this book right now? And how do you think it contributes to our understanding of the conflict in Israel?
Yeah, the why I wrote it right now? Because I'm getting old and I didn't want my writings, which uh, it's essentially encompasses and entails a period from 2002, or perhaps 2002, yeah, until 2023. I didn't want all these thoughts that I have and writing to get lost. So, and colleagues convinced me that they contain ideas and logic that is unique and that I should put them together. And especially in the post October 7th era, with the outburst of, with the explosion of anti Semitism and anti Zionism, Yeah, I felt compelled to put it together primarily to provide a weapon to a new generation.
Mm.
Some of my thoughts and some of my findings, arguments, statements, slogans, okay, proverbs, whatever you call them, are very good, very powerful talking points that people, if the next generation, are not using and not aware of. One of the most important one is, of course, xenophobia, word which I happen to coin, but it's the idea that we don't appreciate the scope and the depth of Arab resistance to the existence of Israel. To the last man, I think we already talked about that. We think, oh, come on, I'm sure you have some people, some Palestinian
You and
who
I
are
have talked
willing
about this many times,
many times.
on and off camera.
Yeah, I know. Yes, yes. And by the way, the number of Palestinians willing to accept Israel has increased from 4 to 5. Yeah. That's something which people in the West do not appreciate. And only a person who were thirsty to find those islands of peace in the Muslim and the Palestinian world communities, only he who was thirsty to find them appreciate how scarce they are, how numbered they are.
Well, let me ask you, what do we do today about, the fact that the word Zionism has become a dirty word, that it's a slur? How do you respond to that?
My response is
It's like a
I
litmus
started I
test.
started an institute. I'm calling it's not an institute, but it's a social club called the Smiling Zionist Havdalah. We are doing we are doing Saturday night ceremonies with a smile. By us being confident about our Zionism, by us taking it as a moral imperative, not trying to justify it, by taking it as for granted, treating it as the essence of normal life. In that way, we inspire others to understand that Zionism is a moral imperative.
Does that work today? I mean, do you
The
find that
smiling,
that
yes.
works?
So far, for me, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I see that non-Zionists are scared of me. What are they scared of? My smile. And I smile and say, I do never say I'm a proud Zionist, because proud Zionist means that if you don't say it, you're not proud, right? No, I just smile and say, let's listen to you, you nasty, ugly xenophobe. Let's tell me something about the occupation. Come on, with a
Mhm.
smile. Tell me about the occupation. Tell me. That's how you get it.
Well, let's go back to the book a second. The book begins with an essay from 2002 called Hope from the Horror of My Son's Murder, in reference to Danny. It was in the Sunday Times, and it ends with the crater of October 7th. How are these two horrific events connected?
Well, the tragedy of my son Daniel um, called my attention to a world that I wasn't aware of, namely the hostel of the Islamists, the degree to which they resent the West and are willing to take cruel and sadistic steps to express their hostility to the West. I wasn't aware of that, and I became aware of that with the tragedy of my son. It was intensified in my dialogues with Muslims in my trip to Doha, Qatar, and I understood it more uh, being engaged with such um, exercises. Um, but then October 7 was a totally different revelation for me. I realized that the idea of Israel, the right of Israel to exist, never penetrated the Western mind, including your best friends, your next door neighbor. It was simmering them as a question mark. Does Israel really have a right to exist? It wasn't. It didn't express itself as a question mark. It was a granted imperative, right? That Israel has a right to exist. Uh, do you deny the Israel right to exist? Was a question to ask, a natural question to ask to anybody who raised any questions or has any criticisms about the Israel policies. No longer. It came into the open. What came? The doubts and the unwillingness of the Western mind to accept Israel's existence. And we saw it in October 8, when Israel was in greatest need for sympathy, what she received from our friends in the West, good Democrats, liberals. It was unbelievable. It was surprising to me. I shouldn't say surprising because I saw it already simmering in the universities in 2009 and then 2014. Yeah, a symposium here and symposium there. I saw how Hamas ideology is penetrating the intellectual tunnels on our campus. But I didn't be, appreciate how deeply it penetrates the Western mind in its totality, in its uh, in its scope. That surprised me, and I came up with the conclusion that, as I phrased it in my introduction, that Jews will not be equal in the family of men until Israel becomes equal in the family of nations, which means that the existence of Israel and the idea of Zionism is a test of normality, normalcy, and and that the Western mind has not accepted Jews as equal, not yet. They accepted us as minority that ought to be tolerated, admired, respected, but not equal. And Israel is a call for normal, for equality. And that has not penetrated the Western mind yet. They love to admire us, but not to allow us equality.
Well, are you optimistic about Israel's future?
Yes and no. I cannot sum it up. I can see forces pulling up into destruction, and I see forces pulling us to redemption. And it's really it depends on what day and what channel of television I'm watching. So I cannot summarize it all. If I was ChatGPT, I would summarize the positive and negative and give you an answer zero. But I'm not that smart. I'm
Are you
really oscillating.
are you concerned about the polarization. I mean, there's the incredible polarization we have in this country and the incredible polarization we have within Israel. I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you, you know, how does that impact your thinking here as a person, as a human being who grew up in Israel, and also as a scientist? What is this? Yeah.
I have two modes of thinking. One of them assessing the situation. The other one is forgetting about your assessment, work for good. So if I look at the situation the way I see it, I'm totally in despair. I don't know where this country is going to, and I don't know where Israel is going to. I get really in despair. But then I say, I have to do what to the best of my ability. I have to contribute to the positive side. I still have something to contribute. I can still sing few songs, and I will do it.
And you can tell some stories
I can tell
about,
few
I
stories.
mean, one of the things that's so, again, I really want you to do this, but telling the stories of your upbringing in Israel is that period of Israel is such a powerful period. And your life growing up there is that's I find so meaningful to hear your
Yeah, I don't
stories.
know why it feels meaningful to you because it's natural to me. You know, a fish doesn't appreciate the water. But
Mhm.
I find once in a while I find people who not knowledgeable
Mhm.
about this period, and it gives me a sense of usefulness, an illusion of being useful.
No, it's very useful.
Yes.
I love hearing these stories. I mean, in your book, you actually you have your own you have a peace formula. Can you tell us just a little briefly about your peace formula?
Ah, my peaceful. Yes, yes. I'm glad you reminded me. I almost forgot. I live in it, so I don't appreciate it. Yeah. It's, two states for two people, equally legitimate and equally indigenous. And then I have an addendum. You must start with the latter.
Let's start with a what?
Latter, Latter, with the latter, which means equally indigenous. There will not be any progress toward peace unless both sides recognize the indigenous status of the other. Mutual acceptance as indigenous to this land. That must be a prerequisite. And the rest follows by logical deduction. I don't have to be there. If you accept that formula, the rest follows. And if you don't accept it, all the failures that we have seen, from the Oslo Accord until until October 7th, are explainable. Are explainable. Everything that I see today happening emerges from ignoring the elephant in the living room. The elephant is not recognizing the need for mutual recognition and mutual acceptance. Acceptance in the psychological sense.
So that has to happen on the side of the Israelis and the side of the Palestinians.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
it's a complex story on both sides.
It used to be easy on the Israeli side.
Yeah, it's
Now
become
it's
much more complex.
more complex
Yeah.
because of of October 7th,
Hmm.
where the idea that they will one day accept us as becoming more remote
Hmm.
in the Israeli psyche. At least we had, I think, before October 7th, we had the 60 or 70% of Israel still hoping that one day there will be a leadership in the Palestinian side that will accept us internally, that will internalize our existence and our permanency.
Hmm.
That percentage has diminished.
Do you think over time that might change?
On the
You think
Israeli
there's
side,
still hope for the?
yeah, on the Israeli side, it can change, I think. It can change with a
Mhm.
new election, with the new leadership. I believe it can change overnight. It doesn't have to wait even for a sign of acceptance from the Palestinian side. It will, it can come simply from pragmatic thinking.
Mhm.
We are going to stay here, and the Palestinians are going to stay here. They're not going anywhere, and we must have peace. And the only solution, the only utopian solution, is two states for two people. Utopian.
Mhm.
Now we have to work toward that. But we must recognize the obstacle. If you don't recognize and name the obstacle, you're never going to get there.
So
And the
you,
obstacle is called one word, Zionophobia. Unwillingness on the other side to accept any form of Jewish sovereignty anywhere in the Middle East, under any condition, any borders, in its scope and entrenchment.
Mhm.
That is the problem. We have to name it and work toward its removal, or at least minimization. Yeah. Now, right now, we have 5 people already.
5 people. I think a few more, but
You're laughing. You're laughing.
I know. Okay.
Every
Well,
time we
we
get
can
that,
argue about the numbers. We
we argue
always do.
about the numbers.
Okay.
Maybe next time we do the interview, it will be 6.
Okay. Um, so, I mean, let's step back from Israel a little bit. Do you feel optimistic? I mean, we have this incredible anti-Semitism, and as you describe, use your word Zionophobia. Do you feel optimistic about the future of the Jewish people at this moment?
It's hard for me to say yes because if I want to say yes, I said I can say yes with full confidence. I put my mind into the islands of positive expectation. But
Mhm.
then I can also tell you no, and I can put my mind into the island of distress and despair. I've listened to some of the right-wing anti-Semites in the last past week. So I listened to what's his name, Carlson.
We have a major story coming out about the Christian nationalist movement and anti-Semitism in the Christian nationalist movement. It just went online. It's really good by Tom Gelton, and it's the cover story of our next issue. And it's a very concerning.
It's
The
very
anti-Semitism
concerning
in
to
that
me.
movement is
Yes,
really, really concerning.
yeah. But I'm fully aware and cognizant of the fact that Israel needs U.S. Israel cannot exist without a powerful friend like the
Mm,
U.S. And
right.
if this gets eroded, Israel days could be numbered. I'm sorry to say that. That's my assessment as a scientist, as a
Well, here we
pragmatic.
have, as a scientist, yeah, and as a human being. But let's go back to AI a second before we begin to wrap up. I mean, AI also plays a role in anti-Semitism. And is there something
Yeah.
as what do you have any thoughts about how we can prevent AI from jumping into this and, or humans from using AI to create incredible, you know, AI videos that seem real? I mean, is there something that you think that you
No,
have
I
on this? No,
only guilt I have for helping
of guilt. Okay.
develop such a nasty tool that could be used so effectively, subject to the inequality in numbers. You can have so many hackers
Mhm.
dedicated, and they have the numbers. They, I mean, the xenophobes in the world today, which counts in the billions. Okay, they have the
Mhm.
numbers. and they can master huge hordes of hackers to override any ideas, any reasonable ideas that one can
Mm.
come up and create, bots and sceneries that seems and
Yeah,
disinformation pump us and bury us in disinformation. It's I don't have any remedies,
which brings
any
us back
tools.
to the narratives because the narrative the narratives become out of our control.
Correct? It
Yeah.
is becoming a manipulation of the narrative. And once you manipulate the narrative, you can see even reasonable people becoming xenophobes.
Mm. I think that's already happening too.
Yeah.
Is there one memory from your childhood in Israel that you think that can help us tell the story of Israel to future generations? You've told me so many stories over the years, and a lot of them are very inspiring. But is there one moment or one memory that comes to mind?
No, but I don't, what is memorable, what strike you as memorable is not the same as what struck me as memorable, because I don't know what appears unique and interesting to an outsider. But I should not leave this interview without giving tribute to my teachers. And I'd like to mention that everything that I have in my brain,
Your human arsenal. Yes.
in my arsenal, in my personality, and in my singing, I owe to my teachers because not only me, but my entire generation is a beneficiary of the greatest educational experiments in the history of mankind. Where else do you get a bunch of professors coming from Heidelberg and Berlin on the top of their scientific career to teach high schools? And they couldn't find a job in academia, so they became high school teachers. And me and my generation were beneficiary of that experiment. Okay, and they taught us so nicely, and each one of them was a polyglot and an expert on so many fields. And so they inspired us. And I owe a lot of my both my personality to them and my scientific thinking and my curiosity and my belief, self-confidence. I would say even chutzpahdanki, chutzpahdik kind of audacity to explore science on my own and to understand it my own way. I owe it to them
Hmm.
because they instilled into us this illusion that each one of us could be an Einstein. Okay? You can do it. We are working together to create new mathematics or new science. Yeah, that was their mode of teaching. Okay, so we are lucky, and that one element that I should pay tribute to, and another one is growing up in a climate of nation building. Imagine growing up in an atmosphere where everything was geared toward one and only one aim, one goal, to build a model society and to build it quickly enough to be able to absorb the remnants of the Shoah. Okay, that and you do it yourself. Don't ask for any help,
Yeah.
even if you are not expert in plumbery. Okay, you become a plumber. They said my grandfather, who didn't know anything about cattle, to buy cows in Damascus. Okay? And he went there. He took, I think, 1 week to study about cows and went to Damascus to buy cows. Okay? Because if you don't do it, it ain't going to be done. Okay?
Was this your
You,
grandfather, the rabbi?
he wasn't a rabbi. No, he was just Chaim Pearl.
Oh, okay. Didn't you have a great grandfather who was a rabbi
Great,
who was
great man. He was a rabbi from Kotsk. Yeah,
okay?
from on my mother's side, yes. I'm
Ah,
talking
okay.
about my grandfather from my father's side, the one that Danny mentioned in his last word. There's a street in Bnei Brak named after my great grandfather, Chaim Pearl, who was one of the founders of the town. Yeah.
Hmm.
So he was one of the founders of the town that came there in 1924 to establish the new town of Bnei Brak. Okay. So the town sent him to Damascus to buy cows, to start a dairy in Bnei Brak. Who wouldn't buy milk generated by the Hasidim of Bnei Brak? Yeah. So everything had to be done by us, or else it won't be done. In that kind of climate, if you grow up, you get a different kind of chutzpah than growing up in a society where everything is provided by others, by the
It's a great
experts,
gift.
by the
It's a great
experts.
gift. It's a great gift from to be able to chart your own path, find your own way, and and it's something that more people need to have experienced, I think. It's wonderful. It's
It's
great wisdom. Um, I thought perhaps because we were singing in the beginning that is there a song maybe from your childhood that you would love to sing to us? I can't sing it with you
so
because I'm
many,
unlikely to know it.
I
So
tell you something. Um, we spoke about the Havdalah. My
yeah.
last Havdalah lasted 3.5 hours. We started at 7:30 and we ended up at 11 and say, ah,
Oh,
it's already
when
11.
we had Havdalah at the restaurant?
Yeah,
Oh
same
yes, it was
restaurant. Yeah.
amazing. It was a wonderful Havdalah. You want to sing us some Havdalah? Sing us out on some Havdalah?
המבדיל בין קודש לחול, חטאותינו הוא ימחול, זרענו וכספנו ירבה כחול, וככוכבים בלילה. שבוע טוב, שבוע
Yeah.
טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב. שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely talking
Thank
to you and spending
you,
time with you.
Nadine, for giving me the chance to tell the story of my life and to share the story of my life.
Thank you.